out to another episode of It's All Been Trucked Before. This time, the Schizoid Man. I'm going to get schizoid on you now. I'm going to talk about a Patreon. Become a Patreon supporter. Patreon.com/IABD. Go there, support us. You support IABD Network. You support us. You support all the shows on the network. You support the network. You keep us going. You keep us doing this stuff. All kinds of fun stuff. And you get all that bonus content. Like, we're going to be talking about anxiety at the end of the season, a novel. You know what? Start reading now, so you'll be ready for that. And it's a bonus because I'm going to tip my hat. It's a great book. If you love Star Trek, you're going to dig that book, especially if you love Next Generation. Just like you may or may not, see, I'm getting schizoid still, may or may not enjoy the Schizoid Man, but you're going to enjoy the way we talk about it on It's All Been Trucked Before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Trekked Before. This week, we talk the Schizoid Man. Schizoid?
Yeah, the Schizoid Man.
Schizoid Man.
And we've got the regular crew here with you.
This is Steven.
And Herbert.
Keith. And Jimmy-Jerome. First impressions of the Schizoid Man.
I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I thought there was some stuff that we'd done before in TOS, and we'll dive deeper into that later. Mm-hmm. I thought I thought the characters that were involved help it rise higher than I thought it would based on what it was. But I didn't love it. But I was able to stay engaged for the most part. But.
There were some problematic things certainly about really the grandpa character, which I guess we can get into later. I thought it was a great vehicle for Brent Spiner. There were some really subtle acting choices that I liked, but we can, again, later.
Yeah, I mean, I said I really liked it earlier, and I think now as I'm looking at my notes again and thinking about it, I think it was fine, but I think that maybe my bias, we talk about recency bias, I'm going to spoil. I watched this immediately after Loud as a Whisper, which I hated. And so this felt like a lot more fun and kind of a bounce back, even though as I'm trying to think about it critically and compare it to other Star Trek episodes, it was lacking. But there were some great guest stars, some cool elements in it. So let's get started. It starts with Pulaski's log, which I thought was cool and different.
Yeah.
And then we get to see Data with a beard. What do we think about that?
I actually laughed out loud at that. I don't usually care about those sorts of things. It's something about just the reveal. I actually just laughed and,
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
I thought it was funny, but and maybe this is part of Data's journey to become a real boy. Obviously, anytime any of us, whatever our decision is on our facial hair, there's a reason we go that way and we want positive reinforcement or whatever. What is Data's? Because what is the logic in him doing that?
Just to have a human experience.
And that's what I ended up with, but I couldn't.
Or I thought maybe it's because Riker had grown the beard.
That was a thought.
I'm surprised that didn't come up specifically, and I thought that would be a little funnier, especially if Riker had been with them and he wanted his opinion about it. But
yes,
there's something human about the experience of. But yeah, my point is that the human experience of vanity, for lack of a better word, and seeking approval from others about it, and
I thought Data played it up too much a bit, but also that's Data, and then I also thought it looked really fake. But then again, he's an android, so of course it's fake.
Yep.
Then we go to the bridge, and Pulaski's in Troy's seat, which I guess could be interchangeable for any medical personnel on the bridge, but it still felt a little bit weird that she so comfortably sat in Troy's seat.
Yeah, because last week she was sitting there uncomfortably at the very beginning of the episode, as I noted. So yeah, I don't know if they're just like, well, we're going to have her there. You know what? Let's just get her there and have her seated and ready to go. Yeah, I don't know.
The beaming down, I know I'm skipping a little bit, but I didn't feel like I didn't have any other notes about that sequence. But as they're beaming down, they talk about a near warp transport.
Yeah.
And
I loved it.
And for a moment, Troy was stuck in a wall. Is that concerning to anybody else?
Yeah,
Not them.
They're they're like, it's whatever, the warp transfer, and like, what do you mean? Oh, you'll see. That's not safe. That can't be regulations. That cannot be regulations. You have to tell people about this.
I do not give my consent.
The Enterprise needs to do something about this.
She's made it all the way to Commander. Her mother travels. She's surely traveled. She doesn't know that. She's not the crewman that doesn't know that. Let some ensign be the crewman that doesn't know that.
I get
that's fair, but
let's do a bonesy thing here and be like, well, you're going to find out. But yeah, I was just like, that's insane.
Well, they didn't really have time to discuss it.
That's true.
So we're introduced in this sequence to Lieutenant Selar, which sounded like Solar? Solar?
Solar.
Solar. It's spelled S-E-L-A-R. Lieutenant Solar, M.D., she's a doctor, played by Susie Plaskin, who will become very familiar to Star Trek actors because she plays lots of characters in Star Trek. This is her first next-gen character, but she will return for 2 episodes, one of them this year, as Kalar, the Klingon ambassador that is the mother to Worf's son.
We don't see Sailor again?
I'm sorry?
We don't see Sailor
No, we don't
again?
see Sailor again.
She's working with Mabenga, or she and Mabenga end up going the same route.
I liked her a lot too. But then the actress, like I said, she'll play 2 episodes as a Klingon character that's a love interest for Worf.
That's crazy.
She'll return in Star Trek Voyager as the female Q, basically Q's wife in the series. Yeah, those are 2 major roles, to play the mother of Worf's child and Q's wife. And then she also did an episode of Enterprise.
Like a mini Mark Sarek.
Yeah, I mean, she's in Star Trek a lot. I was surprised she didn't have any Seinfeld credits. I thought she would have been in Seinfeld. She looks like the type of person that would be in Seinfeld.
Shoot, I wrote Barbara Allen Woods does. We'll get into it later.
Yeah, I wrote that down too.
Yes.
So yeah, we'll talk about her real quick. We beam down. We meet the 2 people that are there: Dr. Ira Graves, and his assistant Karine Brianon, played by Barbara Allen Woods, who this is the only episode of Star Trek she's in, I believe. I'm looking. She's best known for One Tree Hill and the movie Striptease.
Yes.
And then, of course, she was in Seinfeld, as Stephen mentioned. Who did she play in Seinfeld?
So, and the Seinfeld episode, she was in the episode The Scofflaw. She played Debbie, and she is a girl that I think John Lovitz dated, and so John Lovitz's character tells George, hey, Debbie said hi. So then George meets up with her. He's like, oh, she said hi. I should see what she's up to. She's like, I didn't say hi. I sent my regards. It's like, sent your regards? What does that mean? Like, I thought we were on a date. No. Regards doesn't mean date. This isn't a date. So, yeah, she was good in the episode. And then in Striptease, which I hadn't seen in 20-some years, she is the snake girl in the movie. So if you want to see a lot more of her, you can see her in Striptease. You can see her in an issue of Playboy, which I have from 1993. And then she was in I think it was a USA steamy soap opera called Eden. And I think that's what the Playboy pictorial was supposed to tie into. But yeah, so she's kept busy. But yeah, whether clothes on, clothes off. But yeah, I forgot. I had no idea she was in Striptease. I thought she was a smaller part. But, well, it wasn't a small part.
I was saying, and she has a daughter that is very famous right now that kind of blew up. Natalie Allenwood. She had major reoccurring roles in Gotham, in the Goldbergs, and also was a lead in the X-Men Fox television series, The Gifted.
Wow.
So, yeah, I thought she looked like a different actress. That's why I looked her up, Barbara Allen Woods. But yeah, her daughter Natalie Allen Lind. If you look at her face, I assume you'll recognize her. She's got a ton of credits. Like I said, she's had major parts. 26 episodes of the Goldbergs, 7 episodes of Gotham as Silver St. Cloud. Yeah, she's an actress I've certainly paid attention to, and I was surprised. And she's only like 20. She's young, but I was surprised to see that was her daughter.
Yeah.
And then the third guest star there, Dr. Ira Graves, is played by William Morgan Shepard, who looked very familiar to me. He's got lots of credits. He has other Star Trek credits as well. He actually has 187 credits. And the thing he's best known for is playing a Klingon commander in Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country, which we have not reviewed yet. But that's number 1 on his IMDb page. So, he's a very famous, or somewhat famous anyway, character actor. Certainly looked familiar. He will be in an episode of Star Trek Voyager as well down the road. But yeah, he did die last year. So only pretty recently. Yeah. So anyway, enough about those actors. We beam down. I liked Lieutenant Dr. Solar a lot.
Yeah, personally. I did too. I liked her a lot. I thought she was really, I mean, obviously she's a Vulcan. She's going to be cool to some level. But yeah, I liked her a lot.
I also liked Kareen. She was, sorry, Keith, go ahead.
I was going to say that what I appreciated was that they finally got to how many times we mentioned, why are we only ever seeing one doctor do something? And they finally said, hey, we have another doctor on board who can just do this one thing.
Yep.
And so finally they delegated responsibility appropriately. And also I like that she was a Vulcan, but that didn't really seem to be an issue of any sort. They finally got to the point in the series or in the Star Trek universe where they didn't have to make a big deal out of everything regarding, oh my God, there's another species here. Oh my God, this, just.
That's a good point.
Yeah. I did think she was in this episode, though, because Pulaski was super present in this episode, and it just felt like we didn't need 2 doctors for the story. So I wonder why they included her.
Jimmy-Jerome, it's always good to get a second opinion.
I'm not complaining they included her. I just feel like they could have written a story that needed 2 doctors, and this wasn't it.
Well, what? They had two potential medical emergencies, and one was.
That other one we never even saw. That was kind of an unnecessary device in the.
I guess for the point of featuring another person in that prominently, I suppose you're correct. But I'm just saying this is a question, or at least a sticking point we've had on many occasions, that they only ever going to have one of each kind of personnel doing anything. So
I appreciate that. I felt it was odd because Pulaski is such a decently sized role in this episode, and there was never any need for 2 doctors. Like if they brought her in to consult. But I guess you're right. I guess it's nice just to see a normal person doing a normal job and not a specialist brought in for a specific task or something.
So Graves had Darnay's disease, right?
I don't
remember what the name was, but something like that, I think.
He also had foot and mouth disease, I
think. They just said that it's always terminal, which I wrote, what would Spock say about that? Of course, he would say there are always possibilities. So,
well, it also say terminal, right?
That's true, yeah. On a long enough timeline, everyone's survival rate is 0.
He just, from right away, struck me wrong.
Yeah,
the sexism. Women aren't people; they're women.
Sorry, I had to pause it so that I could write that down, saying that I just out loud. I just had to say, "Oh my God!" at the time, and my first thoughts were, "I'm sorry, go ahead."
Yeah, it's just so weird that scene. Whole first scene is just bizarre, especially after, and maybe this is that whole thing of, they're talking about he's the greatest human mind in the universe and all that and blah blah blah, and then it's like, they're in I know we canceled him, Woody Allen, but in Manhattan the movie, Diane Keaton's talking about her first husband throughout the whole movie, and like he was sexually devastating and amazing and blah blah blah, and then you finally meet him and it's Wallace Shawn, sorry, spoiler alert, and it's like, okay, wait, this is a sexually devastating guy. And, hey, Wallace Shawn probably is, but anyway, it's kind of a joke in the movie. And I don't know, is that the idea that like this guy's got one of the most brilliant minds, and they get down there, he's just like Mr. Horn Dog, and I'm dying, but I'm Mr. Horn Dog, and yada yada yada, and I don't care about anything. It was just, if that was a joke, it didn't land.
No, and maybe it just didn't age well as a concept.
Well, one thing I noted is it seemed like they were using the stereotypical trope of, here's what happens when you get old. You get just generally insensitive, you're racially insensitive, you're sexist, and you have that same kind of voice and almost that same kind of, I'm an old man accent, thing.
Yeah.
And it's weird that would still persist into the future. And also, how old would he have to be to have, come up in a time when that sort of attitude was still expected? Like, that's something you grow into. It just seems like that.
He's everybody's weird uncle at Thanksgiving, and maybe that plays into the fact into why he thought he had a shot with the assistant.
Mm-hmm.
He's so either, but then it's either he doesn't care or he's just not self-aware at all enough to realize that he is a fossil. He is a relic. Maybe that's part of where they're going with it. But no, I don't think any of that landed.
No, they brought that up. I mean, he was self-aware enough to know that. I think even the assistant was talking about that there just seemed to be this sort of unspoken thing where there was attraction, but they just didn't think it would work because of the age differences and so forth. Mm-hmm. And
wait, did she say she was attracted to him?
I don't know.
No, she didn't. She said if I had been older or whatever, if it worked out. But why does Troy tell her that Dr. Graves is attracted to her? Like, why?
Right.
That felt super weird.
One, it's obvious. We don't need a half betazoid to tell us that. We got it.
True. But Dr. Patient Confidentiality, it feels like Troy's just stirring up crap there. Mm-hmm. Like she's trying to start something. Dr. Graves, so there's a continuity thing here that might feel a little off to me, but maybe we can explain it away. Dr. Graves said he taught Dr. Sung everything he knew.
Oh, yeah.
And basically was Data's grandfather. But we see in later episodes of Star Trek, specifically in Star Trek Enterprise, that Dr. Sung is part of a long line of Sungs that are eccentric scientists. So it wouldn't have come necessarily from this other guy, but I guess you could explain it away that he's just got such a big ego that he worked with Sung a little bit. He's going to take credit for Sung's work. Well, even though Sung already has a family lineage of studying such things.
But in robotics in particular, I think that might have been he could have been a teacher of some sort along the way. It was the age thing would be more curious than anything to me, I guess.
But I would assume, based on the lineage that we established later, that Sung probably learned from his father, who learned from his father. Like, there's a whole family history of it, and in Star Trek Picard, we'll meet yet another Sung, Dr. Sung's son, who has continued the family tradition, and and they're all played by Brent Spiner. Every Sung is played by Brent Spiner. So it felt very weird here to be like, oh, I'm going to take credit, when later we learn, no, there's like a whole line of Sungs that extended long before this and continue long after this.
I know I'm a TOS guy, but I felt like, you're talking about continuity issues. First they call him the greatest human mind in the universe, whatever, hyperbole. And then they're like, oh, he's doing the man-machine bridge or whatever. I'm like, okay. Mm-hmm. And in my mind, it's like, we did this already. What are little girls made of? Requiem from Methuselah. Those two guys, they figured it out. They did pretty good, actually. I think they got it. They did it. So I know their methods weren't perfect and they killed some people. But neither was Graves' methods. But I feel like it was ignoring. For me, it was ignoring Trek history to an extent. And I don't know how that history plays into the actual history of the world they're in. But maybe they're splitting hairs or whatever. His specific, the way he's doing the man-machine bridge. But to me, it was just like, no, I think we found people who are already doing this. I feel like I'm leaving somebody else out who also built a great machine. But I feel like it was a very TOS episode. Whoever wrote this definitely saw Requiem for Methuselah many times, because I felt like even the relationship between Graves and I keep calling her the girl. I should have her name down. It was very old guy, young woman. And the difference was Methuselah, obviously his thing was he's immortal, but no, it wasn't even that. He was immortal, but at this point he was going to die, and he wanted to pass it all on to Louis, the robot, the machine in that that episode. And so it was similar. They borrowed that from that too. So, and again, Requiem is not one of my favorite episodes. It has some great moments. What Are Little Girls Made Of? I like a lot. But anyway, so to me it was like, that's already a continuity error for me, and maybe that took me out. Not that it made me hate the episode, but it definitely, I was more there. So
So you're bringing up something, I guess, with recency bias for me, because, like I said, I just finished Star Trek Picard season 1, and I'm not going to give you any big spoilers, but the whole concept of androids and the conflict that artificial life creates in the galaxy is a major plot point in Star Trek Picard season 1, and they never ever bring up any of those original series. They just keep referencing back to Data and other characters from the Next Generation and those events. And they do even get into the concept of transferring a human consciousness into an artificial body. That's part of the Star Trek Picard story. And again, they don't even mention Dr. Graves, which I feel like they should have. But they completely ignore those original series examples. So, did you think it was odd that Data doesn't know the song "If I Only Had a Heart"?
A little bit. I mean, he usually is able to get most references. Maybe the tune itself being whistled wasn't enough for him to like sound hound it or whatever.
I mean, I would have thought he was whistling "If I Only Had a Brain," honestly, but
we had a Wizard of Oz reference in season 1 with Data.
Probably.
So, along those lines, I would say yeah.
Yeah, maybe he was feigning humanity like he tries to do to act more human, but it felt weird to me.
Awesome.
I also thought it was really weird every time Data called Dr. Graves grandpa.
Yeah,
really weird. It was creepy.
Yeah.
Man, Brett Spiner played creepy well in this episode, though.
Yeah.
One more note before we get to that part of the story: the funeral, weird funeral shroud. That whole thing was odd. And then why that particular group? Once again, I'm questioning. Just like when Tasha Yar died and we had that specific group of people in the holodeck, this group, it wasn't the whole senior staff, but it was some of the senior staff, and Dr. Solar was there. It just felt like, really, this is the eclectic group of people that have come together for this funeral? It doesn't feel like the right list. I don't know.
Essentially, what was more awkward? The awkward side hug that Picard gives the assistant, or the way that space coffin goes away from the ship, and you can kind of see Graves' face and everything, and it's like, and it's he's, instead of being horizontal, he's perpendicular, moving through space. Spock in the motion picture moving through V'ger. I just thought they were both bizarre. It was just a bizarre funeral.
And unnecessary. We could have just skipped that scene. It was just there so Data could make that stupid speech.
Yes.
So I kept flashing back as Data was trying to pretend, or as Graves was trying to pretend he was Data, to when Lore was pretending he was Data. It felt like the same story, only he was hiding it even worse.
Yeah, I thought the switch was pretty obvious.
And Picard, like, being all, I'm going to test my theory, and then being all smug about it. It's like, no, dude, everybody could see that. Everybody. My deaf-blind grandma, my grandma's not deaf or blind, but you know what I mean, could see that. It was
somebody deaf as a post, blind as a stump could see that and hear it. It was not Data. Something was going on.
Yeah. I mean, all of his actions. Ugh.
I don't know. I guess I slightly disagree. I thought it was somewhat subtle at the beginning. I mean, at least I liked the way that he was doing it. I mean, obviously he needed to portray that or convey that to the audience that something clearly had happened.
I mean, I don't think he needed to convey that to the audience at all. I think we got it from the conversation they had and the weird cliffhanger of a scene of Graves' last scene alive. I felt I could see it from a mile away. Oh yeah, he's going to put himself in Data's body. We don't need to telegraph that. It'd be better if he hit it and kept us guessing, in my opinion.
But then what would catalyze any sort of discovery about that?
You would have to do something subtle, but he didn't do things subtle. He did things super obvious. You're right, it did ramp up as you went on, but I feel like you could have kept the audience guessing for a while, and they didn't. They just went whole hog.
Well, and I guess, and I'll reference, like as I said, I've been doing my rewatch of the original, and I was watching part of The Enemy Within, and the acting that Shatner does in that as the evil Kirk, if you will, that's one people point to as Shatner acting bad. It's just like, no, that's all I need. It's supposed to be over the top. But anyway, it's so obvious in that episode, and people notice right away, like, what is going on with this guy? And I feel like that should have happened here. Not that they necessarily should have added everything up right away, but at least been like, something weird's going on here. Because in The Enemy Within, right away, everyone's like, the hell's going on with the captain? I mean, he leaves the transport room, the evil Kirk, quote unquote, minus the goatee, and he goes into sick bay and he's like, "Give me some sorry and brandy. Don't give me any. I can't. Don't give me talk or back talk or whatever he says. Just tell me where it is." It's like, okay, and McCoy's immediately like, "Okay, something's up here."
I mean, to play devil's advocate to my own argument and to yours, I guess,
Sure.
just like if you didn't see the scene between Data and Graves where Graves said, "Hey, I want to download my brain into somebody's body," then there'd be no reason for anybody to suspect that that's what he did. Except I feel like Corrine should have known what Dr. Graves was working on, and maybe she should have suspected. She was denying it even when it was right in front of her face.
In this one, I thought the reveal in the enemy within is like, we know, and I thought the way it gets parceled out worked well. And maybe in this, maybe it's because an enemy within, right off the bat, you're already in there, whereas in this, the switch comes halfway through. So like, okay, we need to resolve this in 20 minutes. So let's get them there right away. But yeah.
I thought Troy sensing Data's emotion was an interesting way to reveal to the crew.
I think that makes sense.
Again, we had a good use of Troy, of not only her doing that, but setting up a slideshow, a very particular slideshow for Data. I mean, some of the pictures in there, I questioned a little bit, but obviously they wanted to use footage and pics they already had, but they threw Tasha Yar in there. They threw Remick in there, which I thought was interesting. Remick from Conspiracy. And,
yeah, I didn't. The name before there I didn't recognize, but Remick I remember.
Yeah. And just there were very interesting images that she chose, but then they also showed recent people. I mean, like Graves was in there and Corrine was in there. So clearly Troy did a good job, like putting together her slideshow to expose him. I thought it was a little bit odd to hear Picard call Geordi Data's best friend right here, because I feel like we've just barely started to explore that aspect of the characters, and I would have rather they showed us that over time instead of just saying, "Oh, by the way, they're best friends now."
I agree.
I mean, that one episode, Elementary Dear Data, was not enough to establish that, even though it was clearly going that way.
It's like the episode where they were like, "Oh yeah, Riker and Wesley hang out all the time. They go for long walks." And it was like, wait, what?
Yeah. Data slapping Picard, that was something.
So we've been Colleen started rewatching or watching for the first time or second time. I don't know how many times she's watched it, RuPaul's Drag Race. And so I wrote Picard's fall is like somebody out of RuPaul's Drag Race just over dramatizing the fall, because it was like a spin and a oh my stars. It was just it was crazy.
So the resolution, Picard just knows Data's Data again, just from a sentence or two. I guess that's a sign of how well they've got to know each other over the last year, but it still felt a little bit like, kid, shouldn't you test him a little bit?
Well, I mean, it's also, in a way, a sign of how poorly the old man was doing in trying to sound like Data at the beginning.
That's true.
I mean, he knew something was off from the first conversation, but it was because of that. The guy was so egotistical. And maybe they could have explored the fact that he was put into a digital format. Maybe it took away some of his subtlety, even though he didn't really have any to begin with, I guess.
Yeah.
Character.
And yet we're expected to believe that in the end, Dr. Graves did the right thing and put himself in a computer.
Yeah, that got resolved real fast.
And that seemed like a very voluntary solo decision, that he finally realized he was like killing Data and decided to put himself in the computer. And I guess if he really thought of Data as a grandson, that could make sense, but I don't feel like they gave us enough to get us there.
I don't feel like it had anything to do with Data so much as it did. He was worried about the people he was hurting. I think once he saw that he couldn't control himself with the captain, the captain's argument about you might hurt, what's her name?
Corrine.
Yeah, Corrine.
Yeah.
I think that's when he accepted that. And
that's a good argument. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, I just feel like they could have done a little bit better job explaining it.
I mean, for a guy who, and maybe I didn't hear this right, but wasn't the name of the planet Graves World? He named the planet after himself?
Of course. I mean, his ego was obvious.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if I discovered a world, I would call Woosley's World.
I wouldn't, but my name's not Woosley, and you've got that great alliteration.
Nice.
I mean, the alliteration can't resist.
Exactly.
I mean, Keith would call it like Keith's Cave or something. I don't know. Or we could go to the Jimmy Jungle. But yes, Woosley's World is perfect.
So my next two notes kind of tie together. I watched this episode at like 11 o'clock at night, which was kind of cool because it took me back to when I was watching Star Trek as a kid. Next Generation 2 and the original series, lots of times they'd be on 11 o'clock and I was like, oh, this is so cool. I'm up late. And it just to being late added to the weird kind of sci-fi feel for it. It also made me sleepy because I'm old. But so I ended up rewinding a couple times just to make sure I understood the ending. And I did. I didn't miss anything. But I thought, and this is another instance where I think Star Wars rips off Star Trek. And big spoiler coming up for Star Wars movie. For Solo, a Star Wars story, they end up putting the brain of this droid into the Millennium Falcon. And I felt like that was kind of this when they put Graves into the computer, except and maybe they did the same way where it was just I think in Star Wars they put the consciousness as well as the knowledge. I don't know how you split those out, but I'm glad Graves was obviously brilliant if he was able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So Star Wars rips off Star Trek again.
I did think it was an interesting concept where he was like, I didn't realize how much of myself I'd retain. I thought I'd be soulless or whatever. I appreciated that. That
is, and I guess that's one of those things Star Trek has examined in other sci-fi as well, is whether it's HAL 9000 or whatever, because some aspects of the HAL 9000 were because of the people that created them, and I guess this is similar too. So that and it's ultimate computer and those kind of things. But yeah, it is still an interesting concept.
I just wish they would spent more time exploring that. Honestly. Yeah. I know we say that a lot, but I do. And I thought it was very strange that Data remembered nothing when he came back as the dominant personality, because they made a point of saying there's two personalities in there and they're warring and Data's losing, but Data doesn't remember it?
Yeah.
Unless Graves did that as like a gift to him, like, oh, I was terrible, let me erase this part of my memory.
It could be that. It might have something to do with the way you said that he turned Data off, switched him off before he went in, which makes me wonder, how did he switch himself back on?
Yeah, but they said that Data's personality was still in there. Troy said that when she did the picture test. No,
I mean, it has something to do with the way that he deactivated him. I'm saying if he programmed himself into it, he probably could have sectioned him off in some way.
I see. Yeah. I don't know.
It seems like it would have had to have... So I'm wondering about the on-switch thing now.
Well, we knew he had a switch. That was established in a previous episode.
No, I understand. I'm saying he switched him off, downloaded himself, and then when he's in there, how did he turn himself back on?
Oh.
Maybe switched him off, reprogrammed him, switched him back on, then went in.
So I didn't think he was going to turn him off. I just thought he was going to find a port or something.
Right. But I'm saying he specifically said that he did that. And he had the conversation about finding out where it was.
Yeah, I don't know about that then.
Does the term downloaded himself make this a not clean podcast?
No.
Okay, good.
Depends what context is. You have any fashion? I know Kareen and
fashion. I do. You nailed exactly where I went with it. The only thing I had was fashion was Doc. Assistant. Yeah. So yeah, that is my summation of the fashion.
Well, especially the doctor in the funeral shroud. That was weird. Solar looked great.
Yes.
Nice wig.
Yeah. Yes.
Even though I'm looking at a picture right now on IMDb where it looks like you can see a little bit of her red hair sticking out from behind the short, dark wig. But, okay.
Sure.
Alternate episode.
I kind of already referenced them. I started with Return to Tomorrow, where the consciousness gets put into another body. That was a more advanced race, kind of a thing. And then I went to What Are Little Girls Made Of, and then to Requiem for the Methuselah. I think What Are Little Girls Made Of was the best episode. So that would be my alternate episode.
My alternate episode, and I know we're going to get this later with Brett Spiner playing Dr. Soong, but I guess they hadn't thought of doing that yet. I just think this Dr. Graves should have been a Dr. Soong, played by Brett Spiner.
Yeah.
Any other notes before we get to the rankings?
The one other one I had, and I don't know if you guys noticed this or not, but I think the the last 2 episodes, they reference a Rigelian ox in both episodes.
Yes, I noticed that as well. Was that
So I'm guessing
2 episodes in a row, or I thought it was twice in this one for some reason?
Oh, maybe it was in this episode. Maybe I mushed them together.
I thought that was another sign that he was Dr. Graves because he'd referenced it earlier.
My guess. Oh, maybe you're right. My guess is that the Babe the Blue Ox from Paul Bunyan fame was actually a Rigelian ox that came to Earth. In the 1800s, and it's not just it's a legend, but it's actually happened.
Oh, I should mention it was directed by Les Landau, who directs a lot of Star Trek. This was his 3rd episode. Next Gen he directed, but he'll direct 22 and also a bunch of the spinoffs. It was written by 2 of the Star Trek producers, Richard Manning and Hans Beimler. You may know Richard Manning. He wrote The Arsenal of Freedom. He wrote Symbiosis. Story edited a lot of the other episodes, so we've already seen a couple of his episodes. Hans also has story edited a bunch, but he also co-wrote The Arsenal of Freedom and Symbiosis. So this was their 3rd collaboration.
Oh, okay.
Script. I inclined to think maybe this was. I mean, Arsenal of Freedom had some interesting artificial stuff in it as well.
Yeah.
But anyway. How annoying was Wesley in this episode?
I liked him in this episode too, so I give him a 1.
I don't remember him in this episode, so I'm going to give him a 1.
He was one of the ones who first noted Data.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, he was, like the previous episode, just at the helm, doing things, seemed fine, and also kind of called Data out on, why are you saying this thing about being jealous, etc. And it wasn't, terribly annoying, so I'm still at a 1, really. Maybe 1.5 at the most, but 1.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll give him an average of 1 again then for the 2nd episode in a row. Who did you find annoying in this episode?
Graves.
Obviously, yes.
Oh, you're both gonna go with Graves?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm not going with him because I think at least he was consistent in his personality. Even if you don't like his personality, I kind of enjoyed. I kind of want to go back and forth a little bit, but I'm going to go Picard because of how smarmy and stretching out his data theory and the way he presented it, like, oh, I'm this genius that figured this out. And then also just his reaction at the end, oh, that's definitely Data now, because blah, blah, blah. Crushes of Star Trek.
Solar, done.
Solid choice.
Yep.
I almost went there too, but I'm going to stick with Terry Hatcher.
Really?
Yeah. I
Not
was
Solar or
Korean. They both were enticing, but I'm sticking with Terry.
I could very easily go with Solar or Kareen, and I went back and forth a lot on which one I prefer. I'm gonna jump on the Keith bandwagon and go Solar because I really liked her. But yeah, it was a close call for both of them. I think they were both strong choices.
I really enjoyed just the Vulcan bearing she had, the posture, the eyebrow, just the way, just that the whole demeanor of dealing with the scientist or Graves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just completely unfazed by him.
And I'll say she also, I mean, I think it's a tough thing to do anytime you're playing a Vulcan on Star Trek to not be Spock and just to genderize it, I guess, Saavik. And I thought she was just her own person. She was her own Vulcan, for lack of a better term. So yeah, I give the actress tons of kudos. Like I said, I love the character. I'm bummed we're not going to see her again.
Yeah, me too. She's definitely a character I was aware of. Yeah, I'm sure she's in several of the novels.
Yeah.
I didn't look her up on Memory Beta, but I'm sure she is. Ranking the episode. So let's start at the bottom? I don't think we should start at the bottom. Let's go with another one who had an outside personality, the Outrageous Okana. Better or worse than the Outrageous Okana?
I liked Okana better.
I guess there were probably fewer problems in Okana, and this probably was going to keep it above this one and say like the last one.
Okana was a more complex personality than Graves, I think.
Oh well, that certainly helps as well if you're comparing, guest for guest. I mean, just hearing it discussed, I think, hearing you guys discuss this last episode made me like it a little less.
Oh, so, that's too bad.
So yeah,
Yeah, I still liked this episode overall.
Right.
The one below, the Outrageous Okana, and I'm torn on whether to rank it above or below, honestly. But right below that's Loud as a Whisper.
I probably like You know what? These two, I would. You could lump them together for me, actually. So
Really?
That's tough.
yeah, I mean, I would. Gun to my head, I'd say Loud as a Whisper, but I don't have a. I wouldn't be angry either way.
Wait, did you say you'd put it below Loud as a Whisper?
Yeah.
Okay. And Keith probably would as well.
Yeah, I'm leaning in that way. I mean, yeah.
Okay, well, I would definitely put it above Loud as a Whisper. Like I said, I was torn on whether to put it above or below the Outrageous Okana.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be outvoted, so it's going to go down. Do we think it's better than Where Silence Has Lease?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, then it's going to go next to last. Man, I would not have predicted that ranking. I really, really was bored by Loud as a Whisper and felt like this bounced it back into more interesting territory. And it pains me a little bit to stick this below it. But, we're a group and we got to go with the consensus of the group.
That's
so,
right.
Darn it. Oh, man. Yeah, like I said, it pains me a little bit to type it that way. But whatever, I'm typing it. Next week, we're going to watch Unnatural Selection, where enhanced DNA developments trigger an epidemic of rapid aging. Haven't we seen that before? Caught among its victims, Dr. Pulaski. I do remember her being really old in this episode, so we will get to see that.
My hopes are not high.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. My hopes aren't high either, but I remember Pulaski from this episode. I thought they did a pretty good job on it. The makeup is certainly not the Deadly Years, so we'll see.
Yeah, it could be better than the Deadly Years. So yeah, I guess I'm prejudging based on that.
I do think she's still wearing the Dr. McCoy wig from the pilot, which was worn by the other guy in season 2 or season 1 that aged rapidly. But I think it looks a lot better on her. So I think they actually brushed it and styled it a little bit, even if it is the same wig. So anyway, we'll get to that. Until then, live long.
Don't let anyone hit your off button and prosper.
I am not Herbert.
Yes, you are. You're such a Herbert.
It's All Been Done presents
Who's Got the Time?